This is Johnny Dosco. Stay tuned for another Scoresheet podcast. Holy Kadelka!
Hello, and welcome to another Scoresheet podcast. Happy to say we once again have Todd Zola with us. Todd's one of the founders and runs mastersball.com. He also writes for places such as ESPN, Baseball HQ, Fantasy Alarm, branching out into the daily game field. He covers a lot of stuff. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Yourself? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. I'm good. A couple days after Christmas, so all the present buying and all that's done. It's back to normal almost.
Normal? Well, define normal.
Yeah. Well, normal life here. And actually, the frenzy of the hot stove league has kind of died back down to more normal amounts of transactions, I'd say.
Yeah, usually around the first of the year, it does die down. This year was a little bit different because they changed the dates when people had to declare arbitration and that sort of thing. So it accelerated a lot of the early free agent moves, and then the winter meetings were not quite as rampant as normal. But this time of year it slows down with the holidays and such, and then it'll pick up again. A little quick boost again in January, and then there'll be that one guy that lingers till February, and don't know who that is yet, but there's always one.
Yeah, there's always one guy that just, for whatever reason, though at least Cano signed and Ellsbury and Chu. So position player wise, we're down to just maybe a couple guys that might matter at all.
Yeah, Nelson Cruz and potentially maybe Steven Drew, especially for you score sheet people out there, because he does play very good defense. Cruz, who knows? I don't know if he's priced himself out of the market at this point or what's going on, but there are still enough teams out there that can use some right-handed power that he'll find himself a landing spot and hit his 25 home runs somewhere.
Yeah, I would think that. Doesn't Seattle, they spent all that money on Cano, so the only way that makes sense is if they're going to try to make the playoffs. Don't they still need a couple actual real major league hitters?
Well, they went and got Corey Hart and Logan Morrison, but you did say real major league hitters. They filled some spots. They could still use some right-handed power. So there actually is a spot for Cruz, at DH or depending upon how they want to maneuver things around, because we're not exactly sure where Corey Hart can play right now. There's still Justin Smoke. They have Ryan Franklin as a trade chip. The whole thing with Seattle, they're waiting on Tanaka for possibly trading for David Price and all these sorts of things. Tanaka is the domino that once he falls, it doesn't matter what time of year it's going to be, once the Tanaka domino falls, other things will begin to happen. I really think we're at a standstill right now, waiting on where he's going to go.
Yeah, because there are, like I said, there's only a couple position players, but there's still three fairly big name pitchers left. You got Santana and Jimenez and Garza.
Even Arroyo. There's definitely some arms out there that can help a major league team. Sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised Arroyo hasn't signed. He's not very sexy, but he's kind of like Mark Burley. He just year after year, except for that one really bad year a couple years ago, but mostly year after year he pitches a lot of innings and has a reasonable ERA.
Yeah, and he's gotten it done in Cincinnati, which is one of the better hitters' parks. And he plays a mean guitar, too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Well, he also, I would think at this point, his contract demands, he can't really be holding out for 3 years and $54 million or whatever as he started with. He's got to, I would think at this point, be willing to take maybe a 2-year contract at, 15 a year or something, and somebody ought to pay that.
Of the four guys mentioned, I think he's the one most likely that doesn't have to have Tanaka sign in order to sign. But I think the rest is all waiting to see. And then even though we talk they're hitters and not pitchers, some of those teams are involved in the pitching or Tanaka, and I think they're waiting to see how much money they have and that sort of thing, trades they need to make to see what they still need to fill. So that's, I think we're really, hopefully it's going to, open up soon, now that he's posted and bids will start coming in. But I think right now we're stopped. We're all waiting to see what that happens. And there'll be another flurry. Some trades, Price and maybe Samardzija, some guys like that. But, it gives us a chance to catch up, those of us doing projections, make sure we're all caught up and make sure what we have is done right before the next flurry of moves.
All that trade activity really affects projections, at least as far as playing time. It's kind of hard to project who the starting left fielder is going to be if they just traded for 3 new outfielders.
Yeah, and we joke about it. It is, December, but our buddy Greg Ambrosius has already got 20 drafts going on in the NFBC, National Fantasy Baseball Championship. He's already got literally either done or in process 20 drafts right now. The point being, there is a need out there for some early information, and people are putting money down, and drafting leagues based upon what information is out there presently. So it is kind of nice to have a second opinion on where someone else may think a guy may play or that sort of thing. So yeah, there's definitely a need for us to get this information out there earlier and earlier every year.
Yeah, well, we're getting 300 trades a week from our continuing league. So, even if, and we have a couple leagues that always draft in December for whatever reason,
Yep.
but even if it's not for a draft, if you're going to make a big trade, obviously you're only trading for guys who are going to make a keeper list, so pretty big name. You really have to have some idea what they're going to do next year.
Yeah, someone like Shin-Soo Choo was probably, if you have like 8 keepers or whatever, he was probably borderline. Depending on where he went, he may or may not have been a keeper because he's an outfielder, all that sort of thing. Now that he went to a very hitter-friendly park in a good lineup, he's probably being kept. But what if he had signed with the Mets? What if Houston had blown him away with an offer? He may have been a borderline keeper for some guys. Even some of these pitchers out there, depending upon how many keeper spots, where does, Irvin Santana is a good score sheet pitcher. Now, if there's 12 or 15 keepers or something, where's he going to end up? I don't know if I'm keeping him or trade him right now, depending, if he goes to a contender, if he goes to, back to Kansas City or something.
That's a huge difference. I think in Scoresheet, the lineup and all that matters a little less than Roto because
That's true.
Yeah, the wins for pitchers and the runs scored and RBIs, but the pitcher or hitter park factor
Absolutely
certainly matters. And what if you get traded to a team that has horrible defense, like Detroit last year, pitching with Fielder at first, Cabrera at third, Peralta at short, and that's kind of brutal.
Yeah, exactly. If you had Brett Anderson and you get to keep a lot of guys and you were figuring in a couple of years Brett Anderson's going to be a good pitcher for you and he's now in Colorado, well, you're not quite as happy as you were before.
Our standard leagues have 13 keepers. I can't imagine really keeping him
No,
at Colorado.
Nope.
So of the Garza, Arroyo, Jimenez, Santana, which one of those guys would you like to have if you were a real GM?
Probably Santana. And it's weird because I still remember the year where, he was like, about to go in for Tommy John surgery or whatever. And he rehabbed it. And it seems like it was just yesterday, but it was actually 4 years ago. So he's now had, 4 years of solid 200 inning, 30 start work. And it's not the greatest, but it's pretty, it's pretty stable. It's pretty reliable. But, I still have that injury prone sort of thing in the back of my head, but not nearly as much as I have for, say, Garza and Jimenez. I just, are you going to trust half a year's worth of work? I don't know. So, give me Big Irv if out of those 4. I think I may even want him over Tanaka right now, just because I know what I'm getting. And I know there's upside in Tanaka, but I'm surprised that Santana's still out there. I think he could help a contender.
Yeah, I'm surprised all those guys. Though Garza, he sure gets a lot of love in the media. I'm like you, he's not really at the top of my list of those 4, but they talk about how he's a step better than those guys, a lot of people.
Well, throw ball fast, pitch good. It doesn't always work that way, though.
Yeah. Tanaka, though, his numbers in Japan were pretty incredible. So certainly some major league team is going to throw just a boatload of money at him.
Right. I mean, we joked about Scherzer's wins and the Cy Young and such. The guy was 24-0. I mean, he was 24-0.
Yeah.
That's so. But look at his numbers. His strikeout rate wasn't quite what some of these other guys coming out of Japan strikeout rate is. The translations and he's probably not Yu Darvish. I don't think he's Yu Darvish, but he's probably better than Dice K. So I'd put him between Dice K and Darvish, somewhere between that. But it's just fascinating to me. And we talked about this a little bit offline, how we joke about everybody that win our drafts and taking Bryce Harper and Stanton and some of these guys in the first, the second round, and yet the major league teams are doing the exact same thing. They would rather take a chance on Tanaka than sign Garza or sign Jimenez. It's almost like, they're betting on the come, they're betting on the potential, just like fantasy managers do. So who's to say any of us are wrong? But, like I said, I want Santana.
Yeah, I think that at this point, obviously only one team can get Tanaka, but some other team for the same amount of money could probably get, I don't know, Arroyo and Santana. Get two of them, and then like you said, you've got two kind of known commodities filling two spots instead of one. It it's kind of strange how people will go for that unknown commodity and hope they get the next, I don't know, what, Justin Verlander or something.
I hate to say this because it's almost, it's not degrading is not the word, condescending maybe. Sometimes you feel they're almost too lazy to do the work. They'd rather get lucky and have that built-in excuse of, well, it took a chance, than, grind out success the old-fashioned way. He's 24-0. He's good. Well, we don't know. But, everybody looks at that record. I would have made the same decision sort of thing. Sometimes we do the same thing with our fantasy teams. We'll draft, Stanton and Harper. I use those as the two examples because they still have yet to do what people think they're going to do. They could, but, people are still drafting them in the first or second round. And it's almost as if they're hoping, they're banking on the potential, and, they're too lazy to do the work, to grind out who really should be drafted at that point and not have that built-in excuse of, oh, Harper got hurt or Stanton got hurt and he plays for Miami, that sort of thing.
I'm kind of a big fan of trying to lessen my risk in the first and second round where, obviously if you draft Mike Trout and then he works out, so then you want to draft the next Mike Trout. But I really like guys with track records in my first and second round, and then I'll try to win the league by getting a guy in the maybe 12th round that turns out to be a third round player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually doing a draft literally as we speak, and I'm in the third round, and I'm looking. There's guys, Kemp and Bautista, very good players, but they have that injury stigma attached to them. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to let someone else beat me drafting Matt Kemp, and I'm going to take, Alex Rios or Hunter Pence or, or something like that. I agree. In the first couple of rounds, you can jump a guy a little bit, but you're right. I want to build my base and, later on take my chances with some guys to get me the big boost over what's expected.
Kemp's interesting. I mean, he could be a first round talent this year, or he could be almost fighting for a job. It's kind of the upside and downside for him is huge.
In Pujols and Hanley, you can go on to a certain extent. Yasiel Puig, there's still an unknown around Yasiel Puig, and Jose Bautista with the injury, and Beltran and Holiday, great years last year, but they're also a year older and have had injury history, so they're all draftable right around now, that sort of thing in the third round of a league. So, I'm hopefully, even if I have to give back a little bit in stats, I'll take the stability and I'll make it up later.
Yeah, Hanley is, well, he's not still left in the third round, right? It seems like in every draft.
No. He went in the first round.
Yeah.
I've got him with third round numbers or second round numbers, but no, he was taken in the first round.
Yeah, I won't. I mean, I don't know anything against Hanley, but if I'm in I'll be in a few one-year leagues this year. I'm sure I won't get him in a single league because I won't draft him to the second or even third round, and I'm sure he'll go in the first round in every draft I'm in. Puig, I might take a chance on just because, I don't know, I guess he led my team to a championship last year in a league I hadn't won in 10 years. So it's like sometimes we refuse to ever draft Adam Dunnigan because of what he did 2 years ago. I have a soft spot in my heart right now at this moment for Puig.
I'm waiting on my third round pick, and I'm doing this little podcast with you, so I sent my list in, and he's on the list of the third round, Puig. So
he didn't go in the second round, huh?
No, we're still in the second round.
Oh,
we're towards the end. So he's, I just sent the list in, God forbid I'm the one that holds the draft up. So
right. Well, I guess there is that crowded outfield situation in LA, but it doesn't seem likely he'll be the one losing playing time.
He's going to play. There's no doubt. I mean, unless he's just so goofy with his defense and his baseball sense that they just have to set him down for a week or something. No, he's going to play. And, I don't know. Is he an injury risk with the style he plays? I don't know. Maybe. We haven't seen enough yet. Cespedes, similar, and, he's missed games. Something will flesh out in LA, they have an extra outfielder, but teams aren't quite ready to make the trades yet because there's still a few moving pieces out there that need to be moved first. I think they're going to clear out that spot, probably trading Ethier to somebody because I don't think they're going to be able to move Kemp.
No, they'd have to suck up a lot of money, and then I think they're worried they trade Kemp and he goes on to win an MVP somewhere. You know, it's kind of funny. We used to all not draft pitchers early in a draft because they were considered risky, but pretty much all those guys you mentioned, you know, I'd take a Kershaw over all of them now.
Well, Kershaw went in the first round. Yu Darvish is a solid second rounder. After that, it's somewhat of a crapshoot. Jose Fernandez is being taken really, really early, to me too early. He's off on the third pitcher. Those three have already been taken in this draft that I'm doing, 15-team mixed league. But pitching is going earlier. Some have caught on, others have not caught on yet. But there's some fallacies out there thinking about pitching, and those that have caught on are actually able to gain an edge. Pitching is better, for sure, but all pitching is better. So people think because pitching is better, you can wait. Well, you're waiting, but you're not getting a pitcher that's better on a relative basis. His numbers might be better, but so is everybody's. So I think that's one of the bigger mistakes out there now, are people think they can build a staff, you know, based on late round picks, and we're getting better at identifying late round pitchers that are going to excel, therefore they're no longer being ranked in the late rounds. So you can't even get the James Shieldses in the late rounds anymore. It's not just NFBC, which, you know, I kind of look at. Now, Scoresheet is a different story. You need pitching to get in those playoffs. You need your Kershaw, you need your anchors, you need your guys to get you through the playoffs, and you keep pitching, and you put pitching on your reserve and all that sort of stuff. It's a completely different story. I like to see people that come from Roto and come into Scoresheet and don't quite get that yet, and there's always someone that throws a good pitcher into the free agent list when they do their keepers, and they'd rather keep, you know, Martin Prado than a good pitcher, for instance. I always get a kick out of that because I once was that guy once.
Yeah, there are definitely things that when people come over from Roto, you know, it's like, well, I think any game in any kind of genre, there's a little bit of a learning curve. And I think one thing I tell people that are new to Scoresheet is you can really never have enough pitching. And then on top of that, it's like real life. It's very hard to win the playoffs without one, or better yet, two real top pitchers. Just like, you know, in the playoffs, you can't really win the World Series if you're trotting out 5 number 3 starters. You got to have a guy that can go out there and be a horse.
You know, this past year, to me, what the Red Sox did was the Red Sox had 5 number 2 or 3 starters for the course of the year, and then Lester kind of stepped up to be a number 1. Now, maybe your Scoresheet pitchers do that, but if you're just simming to their numbers, you know, their numbers aren't, you know, so it's in Scoresheet you need that ace. In real baseball, you need someone to become that ace, and I think that's what Lester did. That's what Oakland's looking to do, is try to get some very good pitchers with you're out there, some very good pitchers with an insanely good bullpen. So you don't have to have Sonny Gray go 8 innings. You know, go all out for 6, get him out of there, and bring in your 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys. And I think that's a great strategy for Oakland as far as what they're doing, as far as trying to build a bullpen to back up all those young arms.
Right. Well, they don't have the money to go after a Tanaka or, you know, a David Price even, or so if they have to pay him an ARB. So, yeah.
Oh, Jim Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, they know what they have, and I think they're doing a very good job of taking the finances, the assets they have, and using them properly.
Well, yeah. No, I think that they can afford. They get good pitchers that are not, you know, top of the market, and then they're also fairly active. They get rid of players before they have to pay them, or when they're still good enough to get good players in return. They do a good job, and considering their budget, the A's do an incredible job.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to be Billy Bean. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. But no, that's that pitching thing. I tell people that you can't just have 5 starters and go, okay, now I got enough pitchers. Because just like real life, you need 7 people that you want to start, because at any given time, at least one of them is going to be hurt, or one of them is going to just have a horrible year. So I mean, you can't draft 5 pitchers and then start drafting 5th and 6th outfielders because you like their home run power.
No, and in Scoresheet, you could use them in the bullpen, too. You do the same thing in regular, you know, the Red Sox have got 6 starters now. Either Dempster or Dubron is going to be in the bullpen. So, it's unless they trade one. So it's it's not as if you're gaming the score sheet rules. That's just the way it is. I've used Dylan Gee in my bullpen for a couple of years in score sheet. I never keep him, but I always seem to get him. Hopefully this year he'll be one of my starters because I think he's going to be really good. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't draft a borderline, fourth, fifth, sixth starter and use him as a reliever in neither real baseball or score sheet.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, if your pitchers do stay healthy, the best trading chip possible in baseball is to have an excess starting pitcher in maybe June, July. It's hard to trade away. If you suddenly have two third basemen, there may not be much of a market. But if you've got a decent inning eater starting pitcher who's got a pretty decent ERA, you can certainly trade him to somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Waivers there's always seemed to be a position player that, is at the top of the list. So if you need pitching, you're probably not going to be able to get it through the draft. That's the way to do it, is to make a trade for him.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of pitchers. Well, Todd, like always, it's been great talking to you. I'll let you get back to your draft and the rest of your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and thanks, and we'll chat again in a few weeks.
Yeah, we'll do some strategy talk in the next time.
Yeah, no, we'll get real specific. Well, the next time we talk, it'll be closer to draft time for most leagues, and we can give some specific, this is a guy you should target in the 15th round.
Oh, we can do that. We can talk scarcity. We can talk a bunch of different things.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Thanks for being on.
My pleasure.